The phone call came just after dawn. Ash had been awake for hours, unable to shake the restlessness that came with success too sudden to trust. The skyline outside her apartment glowed pale blue morning before the noise. Her phone buzzed across the counter. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Ash Donovan. A pause. Then a voice she hadn't heard in nearly a year, clipped, formal, but trembling at the edges. Ms. Donovan, this is Elaine Foster, Senior Liaison for the Helix Board. I believe you know our situation. Ash leaned against the window, silent. Elaine continued. Our internal audit has uncovered significant irregularities under Mr. Hale's management. The board voted to terminate his contract last night. Ash's reflection didn't move. I see. We've entered a partnership with Apex Dynamics for a corporate recovery plan. The board has requested that you personally oversee the restructuring. They believe your understanding of the Helix framework is unique. A single beat of silence stretched. Ash finally said, that's one way to describe it. We'd like to schedule an executive briefing tomorrow. The board is eager to begin. Ash looked out at the river, the Helix Tower faintly visible in the distance. I'll think about it, she said, and hung up. At Apex later that morning, Daniel Rice stood by her office window, coffee in hand. So, he said, they finally called. They sound desperate, Ash replied. They are. Their shareholders want a scapegoat and a savior. You're both. She smiled faintly. Poetic symmetry. Daniel turned to her. Are you sure you want to go back in? You could send a team. Watch from a distance. Ash shook her head slowly. No. Some things you have to dismantle yourself. He studied her expression, steady, unreadable, dangerous. Then go in as who you are now, he said. Not who you were. She nodded. I won't. The next morning, a black car took her across the bridge. Rain again. It always rained when she crossed that river. The Helix Tower loomed ahead, the same glass monolith she once walked out of in silence. But this time, her name was on the contract that governed it. She entered the lobby. The same marble floor. The same receptionist, though older now, recognizing her with wide eyes. Ash Donovan? Yes. I didn't expect. No one ever does, Ash said, and walked past. In the executive conference room, the board was waiting. Elaine Foster, composed, middle-aged, eyes like knives. The CFO, nervous, shuffling papers. The CEO, newly appointed, eager to survive. Ash, Elaine said, forcing a smile, thank you for coming on such short notice. I don't do short notice, Ash replied. Just necessary notice. A faint cough from the CFO. The CEO gestured toward the projector. We've had multiple system failures. Client retention down 17%. Operations paralyzed. The Aurora framework you designed for Apex, it's outperforming us by margins that make investors nervous. Understandable, Ash said. Aurora works. Elaine's jaw tightened. That's why we're bringing you in. To rebuild Helix from the inside. You'll have full authority, direct line to the board, and access to all data. And Martin Hale? The CEO hesitated. Resigned. Effective immediately. Ash tilted her head. Voluntarily? Elaine's tone sharpened. Let's call it strategically. For the first time, Ash smiled. Then let's begin strategically as well. As she toured the office floor later that day, old faces turned to stare. Whispers followed her, fragments of disbelief, envy, apology. She's back. Didn't she quit? She's with Apex now. I heard she's the one fixing the system. Ash walked past without reacting. Every desk, every hallway, every shadow felt like an echo of who she used to be. The same space. the same air. But she was no longer part of it, she owned it now, in all but name. In Martin's old office, she stopped. The nameplate was gone. The desk empty, drawers cleared. But on the windowsill, she noticed one thing left behind, a silver pen, engraved leadership through vision. She picked it up, turning it in her hand. A gift once given to Martin after the Helix presentation, her idea, his theft. Now it belonged to her again. She placed it in her pocket and whispered, "Leadership through understanding." Then she turned off the lights and walked out. That evening, back at Apex, Daniel found her standing by the window again, looking across the river. "So," he asked. "They're broken," she said. "But not beyond repair." He nodded. "And Martin?" "Gone," she said. "For now." Daniel raised a brow. "You don't think he's finished?" "No," Ash said quietly. "Men like him never vanish. They linger, waiting to rewrite their story." Daniel studied her for a moment. "So what's next?" She turned, eyes glinting under the city lights. "Now," she said, "I rebuild what they destroyed, in my name, not theirs." That night, alone in her apartment, she opened her laptop. A blank document. Title, Project Requiem. Below it, one sentence. "Every empire that rises on theft eventually collapses under truth." She saved the file, closed the laptop, and stared at the skyline one more time. Tomorrow, she'd walk into Helix Corp not as the betrayed, but as the architect of its redemption, and its reckoning. The boardroom felt smaller than Ash remembered. It wasn't the space, it was the air. Heavy, dense, full of quiet eyes pretending not to watch. The first official meeting between Helix Corp and Apex Dynamics had been called for 10 a.m. sharp. By 9:58, the room was already full. Executives from both sides sat facing each other across the polished table, black suits, measured smiles, notebooks untouched. At the head of the table, Elaine Foster, Helix's liaison. At the other, Daniel Rice, Apex's CEO. And between them, Ash Donovan, standing at the intersection of two empires. Her presentation deck was ready, her tone prepared, calm, deliberate, surgical. But there was one face she hadn't seen yet. Not until the doors opened. The sound of footsteps made every head turn. Martin Hale walked in. He was thinner, grayer, but his arrogance hadn't faded, it had just learned to hide behind humility. He wore no tie, just an open collar and a practiced smile. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said, voice smooth. Elaine stood. "Martin. You weren't scheduled to join. I was asked by the board to sit in, purely as an observer." Old project familiarity. Daniel's jaw tightened, but Ash's face didn't move. Martin's gaze finally found her. A beat of silence stretched between them. "Ms. Donovan," he said lightly. "It's been a while." "Not long enough," she replied. A few chuckles rippled nervously through the room. He smiled wider. "Still sharp. I heard Aurora's doing well for Apex." "Congratulations." "Thank you," Ash said. "I heard Helix isn't." The room froze. Elaine cleared her throat. "Let's begin, shall we?" Ash clicked the remote. The projector flickered to life, displaying a side-by-side comparison. Aurora versus Helix. Graphs, timelines, failure points. Her voice was measured, detached. "The data speaks clearly. Helix collapsed due to structural flaws in its predictive model. Aurora corrected those flaws by introducing adaptive scaling, a solution derived from the original Helix draft." She let that hang. Everyone in the room knew who authored that draft. Martin leaned back, crossing his arms. "So, what you're saying is, you fixed something that didn't belong to you in the first place." The comment drew murmurs. Ash turned to him, tone surgical. "What I'm saying is, I repaired what was broken before it destroyed two companies." The question is why it was broken at all. Elaine intervened quickly. Let's stay on track. Ash, please continue. She nodded, returning to the slides. As part of this recovery plan, Apex will integrate Aurora's logic into Helix's core systems. The transition phase will last 3 months. During that time, I'll oversee all operations. Martin frowned. You'll oversee Helix? I already do, she said simply. Daniel hid a smile behind his cup. Halfway through the meeting, Martin couldn't help himself. You know, Ash, I've been reviewing the old data. You were always talented, but you lacked perspective. Strategy isn't just numbers, it's leadership. She turned slowly to him, eyes calm, voice quiet. Leadership is taking responsibility when things go wrong. You wouldn't understand. He flinched, but recovered quickly. Careful. Arrogance is what gets people replaced. She met his stare, unblinking. Then you must be an expert on that. The silence that followed was electric. Elaine exhaled through her nose. We're done with posturing. Ash, continue. Ash did, like nothing had happened. Slide after slide, she dismantled every metric Martin had once manipulated, exposing the rot behind the company's downfall, without ever saying his name. She didn't need to. Every chart was an indictment. When the presentation ended, the room erupted in quiet applause. Elaine stood. Excellent work, Ms. Donovan. The board will approve the integration by end of week. Martin rose from his chair, hands in pockets. Impressive show, he said, tone deceptively mild. Just be careful not to overreach. This company isn't yours. Ash turned toward him, her expression unreadable. Neither was Helix. Yet you treated it like it was. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think this is over? You think you've won because you're sitting across the table? Her voice barely above a whisper. I don't need to win, Martin. I just need the truth to stay standing, and it always does. He stared at her for a long second, something uncertain flickering behind his eyes, fear, maybe. Or recognition. Then he turned and left without another word. After the room cleared, Daniel approached her. You handled that beautifully, he said. No shouting. No blood. Just silence and facts. Ash nodded, gathering her files. Noise is temporary. Records are permanent. Daniel smiled faintly. You think he'll come after you? She slid the silver pen, Martin's old one, into her folder. He already tried once. This time, I'll be ready. That evening, alone in her apartment, Ash poured herself a glass of wine and watched the rain trail down her window. Her reflection in the glass looked steady, but her mind was already moving. She had stepped back into the lion's den and walked out untouched. But she knew men like Martin didn't surrender. They plotted. They waited. And somewhere in the silence between the raindrops, she almost welcomed it. Because war was familiar, and she had learned how to fight it without raising her voice. The elevator doors opened on the 21st floor, the restricted level known as the glass wing. Only senior executives had access here. Now Ash Donovan did. She stepped out, the echo of her heels swallowed by carpet and silence. Through the tinted glass, the city shimmered like a spreadsheet of light, organized, deceptive. Her assistant, Lena, followed close behind, holding a slim tablet. All financial records, system logs, and transfer reports are loaded, Lena said. There's a lot. Ash took the tablet. There always is when people hide things. She walked into the archive room, temperature-controlled, sterile, humming with quiet machinery. The servers stood like silver monoliths, blinking softly, indifferent. On the screen, she began opening files, payroll ledgers, project budgets, internal invoices. Each line told a story, not of efficiency, but of careful manipulation. Transfers disguised as consulting fees. Vendors with no physical address. Contracts approved under Hale's credentials after midnight. Patterns emerged like ghosts. By noon, she'd found the first real crack, a shell company funneling millions through Helix expansion initiatives. A name kept repeating in the authorization logs, M. Hale. She leaned back in her chair. So this was the cost of his leadership. He hadn't just stolen her work. He'd built a web of fraud beneath it. Ash? Lena asked quietly. Should we report this to Apex Compliance? Ash shook her head. Not yet. I want the full map before I move. Her tone was flat, but her pulse wasn't. Every discovery sharpened her calm, like a blade finding its edge. By evening, the office lights dimmed to blue. The other executives had gone home. Only Ash remained, and Martin Hale, standing in the doorway. He didn't knock. He never did. You're still here, he said, voice casual. So are you. He smiled thinly. Old habits. Can't sleep when the company's in crisis. She didn't look up. You should have tried sleeping when it wasn't. He stepped closer. Word is you're digging into the audit. Careful, Ash. You'll start seeing monsters in shadows that aren't there. I don't look for shadows, she said. They find me. He studied her face, trying to read what she'd found. You know, he said softly, there's a fine line between cleaning up a mess and starting a witch hunt. And you'd know all about witch hunts, she replied. Something flickered in his expression, a flash of panic, quickly buried. He exhaled, forced a chuckle. You always were dramatic. No, she said. You always mistook truth for drama. When he left, she sat in the darkness, watching his reflection fade down the hallway glass. Then she opened a new folder, one marked Private, Aurora Compliance Crosslog. She began to layer data from Apex's systems over Helix's. Within minutes, the picture was clear. Helix hadn't been losing money through inefficiency. It had been bled dry. Fake vendors, ghost accounts, silent kickbacks. The system was full of rot, all traced back to Martin Hale's tenure. Her throat tightened, not from surprise, but from recognition. He'd used her framework to hide his theft. Her code, the same architecture she'd built in good faith, had become his camouflage. The betrayal wasn't professional anymore. It was personal. By midnight, she had the full audit compiled, 267 pages of quiet proof. Each line was a nail in the coffin. She printed one copy and slipped it into a black folder. On the front, she wrote only one word, truth. As she was leaving, Lena appeared in the doorway. You're still here, she said softly. You haven't gone home all week. Ash smiled faintly. Home is overrated. Lena hesitated. When you show them this, what happens to him? Ash looked at the folder in her hand. What always happens to liars? They run out of words. The next morning, the boardroom was silent. Elaine Foster sat at the head of the table, Daniel Rice beside her. Stacks of reports lined the table like quiet witnesses. Ash, Elaine said, you called this emergency session. You'd better have something substantial. Ash placed the black folder in the center. I do. She began to speak, not loudly, not with anger, but with absolute precision. Every number, every signature, every timestamp painted the same story. Martin Hale had embezzled funds, falsified projections, and buried the evidence under her original framework. She showed the cross-referenced audit, the shell accounts, the fake vendors, line after line, detail after detail. When she finished, there was no applause. Just silence, the kind that follows truth too heavy to deny. Elaine finally spoke. You're certain of this? Certainty is what I built this on, Ash said. Daniel leaned forward. And you did it without leaking to the press. Clean. Controlled. Professional. Ash nodded once. Noise doesn't expose people. Facts do. Elaine closed the folder slowly, then looked up. The board will act immediately. We'll convene an ethics hearing. Hale will be barred from future operations effective today. Ash's tone stayed even. I'll assist with the transition. Quietly. Elaine exhaled, half in relief, half in awe. You're something else, Ash. No, Ash said softly. I'm what happens when you underestimate silence. That night, alone again, she walked home through the city. The rain had stopped. The streets glistened with aftermath. Above her, the Helix Tower glowed faintly, its logo flickering. Below, in her bag, the audit file rested like a loaded gun that had already fired. Martin Hale was finished, not by scandal, not by rage, but by arithmetic. And for Ash Donovan, that was the purest justice of all. The boardroom smelled of tension, cold coffee, stale air, fear disguised as professionalism. Every executive of Helix Corp had been summoned for an emergency meeting. The glass walls had been frosted for privacy, but the whispers outside were already spreading. Martin Hale sat at the end of the table, pale and sleepless. The folder labeled internal audit results lay unopened in front of him, like a verdict waiting to be read. Across from him sat Ash Donovan, composed as marble. No expression. No pity. Elaine Foster, head of the board, cleared her throat. Let's begin. The projector hummed to life, displaying a single slide. Findings: unauthorized fund diversions, Helix expansion initiative. The room fell silent. Elaine spoke, voice controlled. This report confirms that under Mr. Hale's direction, multiple unauthorized transactions occurred, disguised as vendor fees. The total amount diverted exceeds $8 million. A murmur rippled through the room, shock, disbelief, the kind that's half performance. Martin's jaw clenched. That's absurd. I've already explained. Elaine cut him off. Please don't. We've reviewed the cross-referenced data. Your digital signature appears on every transfer authorization. Martin turned sharply toward Ash. You think you're clever, don't you? Feeding them half-truths to make yourself look like a savior. Ash met his gaze evenly. I didn't feed them anything. The system you corrupted finally told the truth. His voice rose. You think you're better than me? You wouldn't even be sitting here if I hadn't taken that risk years ago. She leaned forward slightly. Her tone didn't rise, it dropped, cold and steady. You didn't take a risk, Martin. You took credit. And then you took everything else. The words hung like smoke in the air. Elaine folded her hands. Mr. Hale, the evidence is conclusive. The board has voted unanimously to terminate your employment effective immediately. The CFO added, almost apologetically, security is already on its way. For a long moment, Martin didn't move. His face twitched, disbelief giving way to realization. Then came the fury. This is ridiculous, he spat. You think firing me fixes anything? This company is me. I built its success from nothing. Ash stood. You built it on stolen ground. Now it's time to rebuild it right. He laughed bitterly. You really believe you can lead this place? These people will never follow you. They're loyal to power, not principles. Then I'll give them both, she said simply. He stared at her for a long second, searching for weakness, finding none. Then the door opened. 2 security officers stepped inside. Martin's eyes darted around the room, once full of allies, now full of silence. No one looked at him. As the officers approached, he turned one last time toward Ash. You'll regret this. She didn't blink. Only if I stop halfway. They led him out. The doors closed behind him with a muffled thud. The room exhaled collectively. Elaine pressed her palms together. Well. That's done. Daniel Rice from Apex leaned forward. It's not done. The board still needs leadership. Helix can't survive without decisive control. Elaine nodded slowly. Agreed. She turned toward Ash. And we already know who built the systems that kept this company alive. Ash stayed silent, eyes steady on the table. Elaine continued, effective immediately. I'm recommending that Ash Donovan assume the role of interim head of operations. Pending shareholder approval, she'll oversee the recovery process. Gasps. Whispers. The CFO looked uneasy. You're proposing that the woman who exposed the fraud now run the company? Elaine's tone sharpened. Yes. The one person who still understands how it works. Ash finally spoke. I don't need the title. I just need access to fix what's left. Elaine smiled slightly. You'll have both. After the meeting, the hallway buzzed with the low hum of disbelief. Some congratulated her in hushed tones, others avoided her gaze entirely. It didn't matter. When the elevator doors opened, Ash stepped inside alone. Her reflection looked back at her, calm, sharp, untouchable. In 6 months, she had gone from being erased to being in command. Not through noise, not through revenge, through competence. The quiet kind that terrifies people who built their thrones on lies. Across town, in a hotel bar, Martin Hale sat alone with a drink he didn't touch. His phone vibrated, message after message, all variations of "we're sorry to hear." He deleted them one by one. Then a news alert flashed on the screen. Breaking: Helix Corp names former analyst Ash Donovan interim head of operations following internal investigation. He stared at the words until they blurred. The bartender asked, "Rough day?" Martin forced a smile. "You have no idea." Meanwhile, back at Helix, Ash stood in her new office, Martin's old one. Same view. Same glass desk. Same pen holder. She reached into her folder and pulled out the silver pen he'd left behind months ago. Placing it in the center of the desk, she said quietly. "You took everything but the truth. And now, it took everything from you." She sat down, opened her laptop, and began typing the recovery plan. Outside, the sun pierced through the rain clouds, thin, cold light spilling across the skyline. The world was moving again. And this time, she was the one turning it. The office was quiet when Ash arrived. Early light spilled across the glass walls, painting everything in pale gold. The city below was just waking up, traffic thin, the air washed clean after last night's rain. She stood for a long time at the threshold of her new office, the same one Martin once ruled from, now stripped of ego and noise. The plaque on the door still read Head of Operations. She ran a finger across the metal. It was cold, smooth, unmarked. Like a blank page. Inside, the desk was bare except for a single object, the silver pen she had placed there days ago. It caught the morning light, glinting like memory. She sat down, opened her laptop, and stared at the login screen. For a moment, she almost smiled. The system still used the old password convention she had designed years ago, a simple phrase based on Fibonacci sequences. Her work. Still there. Everything came full circle. The elevator chimed outside, followed by footsteps. Elaine Foster entered, holding a stack of documents. "You're here early," she said. "I never left," Ash replied softly. Elaine placed the papers on the desk. Transition files. Payroll, project status, public statement drafts. The board wants a full internal announcement before the markets open. Ash nodded. "Keep it simple. No speeches. Just the facts." Elaine hesitated. "You could make it personal. People might need to hear from you." Ash met her eyes. "They will, through results." Elaine smiled faintly. "You haven't changed." Ash looked out at the skyline. "That's not true. I just learned how not to explain myself." By noon, employees began gathering outside the conference hall. Rumors had already spread. The woman they once ignored was now their leader. Ash entered quietly, no entourage, no applause. Only silence, followed by the subtle rustle of expectation. She took the podium. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm, deliberate, stripped of grandeur. Good morning. You've all heard the news. Helix is beginning a new chapter, one built not on titles or politics, but on transparency and precision. This company lost its way because people mistook credit for competence. That ends now. We will rebuild, not because we have to, but because we can. I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to make sure the work speaks for itself. No applause. No theatrics. Just a deep, collective exhale. It was the sound of something real, respect born from silence. When she stepped down, Daniel Rice was waiting near the back of the room. Short and surgical, he said. You've mastered the art of understatement. It's the only art worth mastering, she replied. Later that evening, she returned to her office. The building was empty again, the city outside glowing orange and blue. She opened her laptop to draft her first directive as head of operations. Initiate Aurora integration, Phase 2. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment before she added one final note. Under my supervision only. Then she hit send. She leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. From this height, she could see both skylines, Helix's headquarters and, across the river, the illuminated apex tower. Two worlds she now straddled, one built from ambition, the other from correction. For a moment, she wondered which one truly belonged to her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Congratulations, Ash. Board just called, they want you permanent, not interim. Official vote next week. She typed back. Not yet. Let them see the results first. You never stop playing the long game, do you? He replied. It's the only one that lasts. She set the phone down and watched the city lights flicker like neurons firing across glass. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Lena, her assistant, peeked in. Sorry to disturb you. Just wanted to say, congratulations. It's good to have someone who actually earned this. Ash smiled gently. No one earns anything alone. Remember that. Lena nodded. Still, it's poetic, you know? Sitting where he once sat Saturday. Ash's gaze drifted to the window. It's not about the chair. It's about what you do when you finally sit down. After Lena left, Ash turned off the lights. The city glowed through the glass, reflections overlapping, like two versions of her life merging into one. She walked to the desk and picked up the silver pen again. It felt heavier now. Not with guilt, but with closure. She pressed it gently to the blank page of her notebook and wrote just one sentence. Silence wins when it learns how to speak. Then she closed the notebook, placed the pen neatly on top, and stood by the window. Outside, the rain began again, not storming this time, just soft and steady, like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. She whispered to herself, barely audible. I'm not back for revenge. I'm back for the truth. And in the reflection, for the first time, she didn't see the woman who'd been betrayed. She saw the one who'd built everything after. The boardroom was full again, the same room where everything had fallen apart months ago. Now, it was immaculate. Polished. Quiet. Outside, dawn filtered through the high glass walls, painting everyone in pale gold. Ash Donovan stood at the head of the table, not as a guest, not as an employee, but as the woman who had rebuilt what others had broken. Elaine Foster cleared her throat softly. We've concluded the shareholder vote. It's unanimous. She looked up, meeting Ash's calm gaze. Congratulations. You are now officially the Chief Executive Officer of Helix Corp. The room erupted into restrained applause, the kind that comes more from relief than celebration. Ash inclined her head politely. Thank you. No smile. No triumph. Just composure. When the clapping faded, Elaine gestured toward the podium. The board has asked if you'd like to make a statement, something for the press release. Ash hesitated for a moment. The weight of years pressed against her, the betrayal, the silence, the rebuilding, the return. Then she rose from her seat and walked to the center of the room. Her heels made no sound on the marble floor. Only the soft hum of the city below filled the stillness. She rested her hands on the podium. The screen behind her glowed with the Helix logo, reborn, cleaner, sharper, redesigned under her direction. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she began. When I first joined this company, I believed success was built on hard work and good ideas. A pause. I was wrong. Several heads turned slightly. Success, I learned, is built on truth, and truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's buried under applause. Sometimes it's taken from you and sold under someone else's name. She looked slowly around the room. No anger. Just memory. But truth waits. And when it returns, it doesn't shout. It simply stands. The words hung in the air like quiet thunder. Helix lost its way because we stopped asking who deserved credit, and started asking who looked powerful. That ends today. Her voice sharpened, still calm but carrying steel. From this moment on, this company will operate under a single principle: transparency without noise. I don't want loyalty. I want integrity. I don't want ambition. I want accuracy. If you can't deliver that, you won't last here, no matter your title. The room remained silent. Some executives nodded slowly. Others avoided her eyes. I'm not here for revenge, Ash continued. Revenge is loud. Wasteful. Temporary. I'm here for correction, and correction is quiet. Permanent. She looked toward Elaine. That's my statement. The boardroom was still. Then, slowly, Elaine began to clap. Daniel Rice joined, then the rest followed, a slow, respectful rhythm that echoed like a verdict. When it stopped, Ash turned off the microphone and walked back to her seat. She signed the final page of the transition contract. Just one signature. One moment. It was over. Or maybe it had just begun. That evening, the building was empty. She stood alone at the window of her office, the skyline glittering beyond the glass. The air smelled of rain and electricity, the same way it had on the day she left. History had repeated itself, but in reverse. She took the silver pen from her desk and turned it in her hand. Its reflection shimmered, the same object that once symbolized her loss now represented her return. She placed it gently inside a drawer. Some symbols, she decided, had served their purpose. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. You did it. Officially the first Helix CEO to rise from the bottom floor. How does it feel? She typed back. Like balance. You're staying quiet for the press? He asked. Yes. Noise makes people forget what mattered. Then what comes next? She looked out at the skyline one more time before replying. Next, we build something that doesn't need my name on it to be real. She set the phone down, exhaled slowly, and allowed herself a rare, quiet smile. As she left her office, the lights dimmed behind her automatically. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Her reflection in the glass looked exactly as it should, calm, centered, whole. When the doors closed, her faint whisper filled the empty space. Truth always comes home. Epilogue: The Quiet Empire. Months later, Helix Corp stood stronger than ever. Profits soared. Employee turnover dropped. The Donovan reform, as the media called it, became a corporate case study, a revolution executed without a single public scandal. Ash refused interviews. Her photo never appeared in magazines. But within the city, people spoke her name with a different kind of tone, not awe, not fear, but respect. At Apex Dynamics, Daniel Rice raised a glass one evening during a board dinner. "To the ghost across the river," he said. "The one who changed everything, silently." And across that river, in her office bathed in soft morning light, Ash Donovan reviewed her reports, made her notes, and signed her initials, not to be seen, but to ensure that truth remained in motion. Outside, the world continued its endless hum. Inside, she sat alone, peaceful, untouchable. Because for the first time in her life, there was nothing left to prove.